Welcome to Picks with the Professor, the podcast for a real statistics professor.
And his friend Jake.
Gives you sports betting tips. Well, that was sad.
Yeah, well, I've got my two most hated teams in the championship, so this is not fun.
Alrighty. Well, I'm Professor Sides. You can follow me on Twitter at Professor Sides. You can follow my sad friend Jake on Twitter at it's only my friend _ Jake. His Twitter handle does not have the word sad in it, unfortunately. Today is Monday, April 4th, 2022, and this episode covers the NCAA tournament national championship game between North Carolina and Kansas. In case you're new here, I built a mathematical model that predicts what the spread and total should be for every Division I college basketball game. And as I go through the plays, remember, there are no locks in gambling. So I'll give you our loves, likes, and leans. With that in mind, please understand that good and bad variance will occur. So as much as I'd like to say the model will be profitable each and every day, that is an impossible reality for any gambler. Jake, I know you're sad that Duke lost. We already talked about this off pod. I personally was a little glad Duke lost simply because I feel like this would have been the worst podcast ever. If Duke wins, Duke had won, I feel like I would have been like, this is my play, and then everyone would have just tuned out while you picked Duke. So at least now we can hear some non-pro Duke analysis. Maybe you dislike both teams equally, so there's no bias here in your assessments, right?
No. It's just me being very depressed over the weekend.
I was hoping that having a day off between the semis and today, maybe you bounce back a little stronger,
It's all right. I'll figure it out. I'm still here making money. Making money is what I'm about.
There you go.
Not thrilled.
And people ask, favorite teams, or I see a lot on Twitter this, why do you hate my team? Blah blah blah. And it's like, man, I hate losing and I love winning, right? It's nothing about your team or anything. It's about who can make us money and who's costing us money is really all it's about. And we like teams that are good to us, and that changes from sometimes week to week, right?
Yeah.
Before we get to today's game, a reminder, please hit that like button if you're on YouTube. Subscribe or follow if you aren't yet. It's the only way to ensure that you don't miss any of the college basketball, MLB, or college football content that this channel provides. Share with a friend if you know others in the game. Drop a comment on Twitter or YouTube. We love those and try to respond to as many as we can. Just the one game tonight, last one of the season. Friendly reminder, just because it is the last game of the season, please be responsible with your wager sizing. You make as much on this one per however much you bet as that random, action game in the middle of the season as well. So they all pay the same based off what you bet. So just please be responsible with this last game of the year. Let's have fun with it. We've got a couple of different plays, a couple different angles to try to let you have some fun with it, but do be responsible with your wager sizing. A late tip-off, I don't really love that they go so late here, but that kind of is what it is. 9:20 Eastern. Two red-hot teams. We've mentioned this recently. It gets very difficult to pick sides here because, and I mentioned this in some of the comments on YouTube, every time you come up with an argument of, look how good this team's done, it's like there's an equal argument on the other side, and that makes it kind of difficult. That's part of the reason why I built the model, because my human brain struggles with this team's done this team's done this. And it's like, how do you balance all that? And that's why I've built the model to help, break through all of that. I've got a couple different plays here. I'm going to start off with some unders here. The total is 152. The model thinks it should be 150. I'm going to play both the first half under and the game under. The first half under is 71.5. I'm going to lock in a B play on the first half under and only a C play on the game under. The reason being there, I'm a little nervous about the full game. What might happen in the second half? What might happen with late fouls? If there's overtime, there's just all sorts of things. I just like the first half angle a little bit more. So I'm going to wager a little bit more on the first half going under. I think that this game will start off a little bit slower here. We see this commonly in championship games. And this first half number is not shaded any lower than any other tournament game has been. But again, we commonly see in championship games, whether it's in basketball, football, any sport, right, that the first part of the game tends to play out a little bit slower. And so I like the first half under 71.5 a little bit more than I like the full game under. So B pick on the first half under, C pick on the full game under 152. It is a little bit nerve-wracking given what we saw in the semis, but there's much more evidence that these teams can play under. If you go back previously, there's much more evidence that the tournament games go under if you go back previously. So I think the number's just a little inflated based off of Saturday. Again, it's not that I'm not expecting a lot of points. The model still thinks 150. I still think there will be a lot of points. But I just think the number got inflated. I think there's a little bit of value, and we're all about value here. Obviously, we want to pick winners in each individual game, but if we're getting value, we know in the long run we're going to get a lot more winners. So it's kind of a hold your nose and play under. But that's why I said I like the first half a little bit more. Maybe we can like hold our breath for those first 20 minutes and get a winner there. I've also got to play on the side, but I'm going to turn it over to Jake, give you your side play, and then I'm going to come back and I'll talk about mine as well.
Yeah, I've got a few player props I'm looking at. Like the first few are going to be kind of over kind of things. I like Caleb Love at over 16.5. He is. Don't pay attention to his first half because he just as easily go off for 28 in the second half. So I really like,
and he's done that a couple times.
Yeah. So it's the first any points he gets in the first half is just bonus money the way I look at it. But so 16.5 for him game total. I like Christian Brown. I think he is kind of slipping under the radar here, and I think he might have it set up for a big game. I've seen it's getting really close to even money and even getting above plus 100 for his over 12.5. I really like that one. And I like Brady Manick the book I use. I got it at plus 102 at over 17.5. The way the guy shoots threes, he's always going to be in the game. If he hits 3 threes, this is going to look really easy, I think. But I don't think it's very, very likely. But and then I really like Jalen Wilson's over 8.5 rebounds. The guy's had a double-double in every game in the tournament. You'll hear that at nonstop during the broadcast, I'm sure. But so I think over 8.5 rebounds. He seems to be going to be squared up like matchup-wise against Manick. And Manick's not that great of a rebounder, so I think he's going to clean up there. And then one I'm kind of watching, it's an under for Abaji. Abaji's just not been very aggressive in this tournament, and even in the Big 12 tournament, he just hasn't really been aggressive to score. He's had 18 in the last 2 games. The line I'm seeing is 16.5, and he hit 6 threes last game, and that's where he got his 18 points. He didn't get anything going to the bucket.
That's crazy.
So I don't think he can hit 6 threes again, but 16.5. We've seen what he can do when he's aggressive. It's just like he's forgotten to be aggressive. So that's an under I'm watching. I haven't played it yet, but that's kind of what I'm looking at.
And we've seen Kansas play a little bit different as Remy Martin has come back and is playing more and more minutes and being more integrated. So it could be a little bit of just how they're playing, the style, the chemistry, whatever, right? That's changed from earlier in the season when it was kind of the Abaji show, all game. And it just an interesting point. The total for this game was 153, bet down to 152. I think the prop market has kind of followed suit with that. And so a lot of the overs that you're talking about have good odds right now. And as of the morning, they're even money plus 105s or minus 105s, at least better than your standard player prop, which is a minus 115. And I think that's because the same thing's happening there. All of the markets are shading a little bit under from the open. I always hesitate to predict because you never exactly know, but in general, that doesn't mean it will happen for this game, but in general, you're going to see more over money come in late. Now, it will be interesting to see as the numbers have ticked down, do the pros, the heavy hitters, whatever you want to call them, the people who can really move a line with their big bucks, do they come in and they still like under? That's going to be an interesting dynamic if they do. But in general, the public's going to come in over as the day moves along. There's going to be a lot of public money bet on this. And so in general, all of these things are going to slightly shade over going forward the rest of the day. Again, that doesn't mean that will happen for this game, but that's the trend for these type of big games. And so my advice would be, if you like any of the overs, go ahead and grab them now, because I don't really see them getting any better as the day goes along. And if you like that under that Jake was talking about, or any other under for that matter, my thought would be maybe wait a little bit later in the day and hope that there's some extra over money coming that shades all those up. And you can either a better half point, better point, or at least better odds with it.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, but the books will more likely move the juice on them rather than the actual number because they don't want to get middled. Right?
Yes, that's correct. A lot of the books will just straight up. There's still some that will move the actual number, but most of them will just move the juice. So for the player props, you're just looking at trying to get better odds as the day goes along because, yes, they're very afraid of They're very afraid of hanging number 16.5, moving it to 17.5, and the players score 17. Right? That's kind of the worst case scenario for them. And then we still got to talk about the side. So Kansas is a 4-point favorite here. And again, as we talked about to lead off the show, both teams have been playing incredible. Kansas kind of struggled a little bit early, putting teams away, and then figured that out for sure. Solve that problem. North Carolina has looked fantastic all tournament. I mean, their two biggest blips were that stretch against Baylor, where Baylor was able to play small ball and pressure them, and North Carolina just could not figure out how to inbound the ball. Couldn't make free throws. I mean, that stretch. And then, UCLA gave him a really good fight. Obviously, Duke gave him a good fight, but Duke is a fantastic team. But for the most part, North Carolina looks really good this tournament as well. So both teams playing fantastic. The model thinks Kansas -6. And so I've got an A play on Kansas -4. I think there's value here at this number. And I like laying 4 because this isn't a situation where if my number says, if the book says Kansas -6, but my number says 8, it's still the same 2 points, but I'm a little bit more nervous there because you never know how late game fouling is going to play out, and that just adds a little bit extra variability. 4 is an easier number to get ahead of, and it doesn't take but one late foul to get outside of 4, as opposed to get outside of 6, you might need 2 or 3. Depending on how it plays out. You always end up with those situations where sometimes either team goes down and takes the layup with 11 seconds left or something, right? And you're like, no, shoot the 3 so you can miss, right? 4 is a great number here. I love laying the 4. So it's an A play for me. I talked about it earlier this tournament. Kansas looks like a different team with Remy Martin, the way that he continues to play really well going forward. And I just think he's the difference maker in this game. North Carolina's had a great run. I think they could obviously win. I'm not saying that they can't. I just think that there's value on Kansas. I think Kansas is the better team. I think as good as North Carolina is playing right now, I think Kansas is playing just as well. And I think that short number, they can get out in front of that and win by more than 4. The model thinks 6. Personally, I think it's probably more like 7 or 8. So A play for me, Kansas -4. Jake, which side are you on?
I'm on Kansas with you right here. Like, I think, Kansas has too many weapons, right? Like, if you go position by position, right, they've got you're going to square off with McCormick and Lightfoot are going to square off with Baycott. That's going to be a wash. You've got Abaji and Brown are going to square off with Love and Davis, and so that'll typically be a wash. You might get a little more Carolina there if Brown and Abaji are hitting from outside, but I don't think that's likely. And then Wilson and Manick, that'll be a fairly even matchup. And what does Carolina do with Leaky Black with Remy Martin? Like, Remy Martin's going to outperform him. I'm not saying those guys will match up on the floor, but what I'm saying is, like, points wise, and then Gordon, if he's hitting or he's going to hit 8 threes, that's bonus money for Kansas. So I just think they've got one too many weapons for North Carolina, but North Carolina doesn't die, so it should be a fun game to watch. And I know it's nothing you can actually measure or anything, but that was an emotional game, that Duke Carolina game. It was a fight. Big games like that rarely live up to the hype, and this one, it was just an incredible game. So much fun to watch, even being on the bad side of it. And then if you look at the last time, that was a very similar game in the last game of the year, right? They go out, Carolina beats Duke at Duke, that huge emotional high, and then their very next game they dropped it to, I think, Virginia Tech. Maybe the first game.
I think they won one game of the tournament, then they lost to Virginia Tech. I think did they beat Virginia?
I can't remember exactly, but so that's going to be a huge emotional rush. Like, can they snap back and be focused on this one in one day? That's going to be tough. I give all the props in the world to Hubert Davis, the first year head coach, made it to the game, and I've been really impressed with. He doesn't scramble around. He's like, we're going to play our basketball, and our basketball is going to either get us there or not. And 9 times out of 10 so far has been getting him to where he wants to go. So all the props in the world to him. But I don't think they've got enough bench depth here. I think that's where it's really going to come into play, because I think they had 4 points off the bench total against Duke, and that's just not going to cut it when Kansas is running 7.5 players deep there.
Yeah, and like you said, definitely props to Hubert Davis. We questioned some of his strategies earlier on, about a month or so ago on this podcast. We really questioned what he was trying to do with his talent. And hey, we'll dog on you when things aren't going well and when it's not working. And for him, that was the case then, but he turned it around, and we give him all the props in the world now because he's done a fantastic job and a really impressive job. And this is where we were questioning what he was doing. And maybe he was kind of tinkering out and trying to figure out how to make it work, but he really showed the ability to play in a slow game and in a fast game. And that's impressive because a lot of teams can't handle that. A lot of teams, if you take them out of their game, they don't know how to handle it. North Carolina has shown the ability, as we talked about, to play fast and it worked great, and play slow and it worked great. And that's a great coaching job by him, especially in his first year. Like you said, all the credit in the world. It's worked out great for him. In the Roy Williams Bowl, right? Roy Williams leaving both of these programs to assistants who have carried on and done very well. Obviously, we just got through praising Hubert Davis, and no praise is needed for Bill Self because everyone knows what a fantastic job he has done at Kansas, winning. I think at one point, it was about 116 Big 12 titles in a row. I think the math is pretty accurate on that one. And so great job done by both of those guys. Should be a fantastic game. Like you said tonight, both Jake and I are laying the 4 with Kansas. Hopefully we can close out the college basketball season with a winner. Jake, any last parting words?
No, I'm going to watch the game, but I'm going to be very angry about it. So better for
hopefully we'll be able to angrily make some money tonight. Yeah. What are you saying about? Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Picks with the Professor. Reminder: check out the Google Sheet for full predictions. All those can be found on the website. That's www.pickswiththeprofessor.com. If you haven't done so yet, click that subscribe button to ensure all the sports betting content we provide is dropped right into your feed. I will see you Thursday for MLB picks. Until then, remember, you can eat your betting money, but please don't bet your eating money.